were some major incidents that happened. One of them being Benghazi. Mm-hmm. Where were you when that happened?
I was in Baghdad when that happened. Yeah, that was, so 2012, I was in Baghdad closing down the old villa. We were closing down the villa, moving out of the villa, going over to the new embassy compound. Yeah, that was an interesting incident. Of course, administratively, that was another administration thing. I think that we were all under some lack of leadership or misled by leadership, all the way up to the White House in that case. Yeah, and I of the guys, Tyrone and Bob, I worked with Bob in Israel a few times. I didn't know Tyrone. I didn't know the ambassador Stevens or anybody, the communicator that was out there. But yeah, there was a lot of things I wish we could like that. Just like another incident that story, that's a great story, but the way it came out in the movie, it wasn't. It just sounded like our like guys complaining about what happened, right? There's a lot of good things. I mean, I'm not saying anything out there was not horrible, because it was a horrible situation. But what our guys ended up doing in this horrible situation was amazing, right?
Yeah.
So instead of having that kind of tone to the whole thing, it was, didn't quite have that tone. Like there was a lot of administrative stuff and backside stuff that they weren't aware about that couldn't make it in the movie probably, but affected the outcome of all this stuff. That wasn't talked about or discussed in the movie, or nobody knows about that stuff, but maybe in some of the books I haven't read.
Can you elaborate on it now? Or no?
No, probably not. Probably wouldn't be a good thing. So there are some stories out there, and from our guys that were out there and that are still alive telling the story. They did some amazing and heroic stuff. So making decisions on the fly. I wasn't taught this. I'm not supposed to do this. The reliancy on the locals, right? Who ended up abandoning their posts, but then somehow relying on them from station management to come back and help. And what I know of Libya and my interaction with all the militias out there, their loyalties are always to their own countrymen, right? Even if they're in different militias. They won't fight another militia for you. And that's exactly some of which happened out there. Because they got to live with them, right? And they can't go to war with another militia, a neighborhood who they have maybe family members in. And that's just the dynamics of militias and a lot of places. And the lack of understanding of that, right? The actual, like their actual intent. And I've done the same thing. You've asked them for help if we got help, or if we need help from them. And yes, all day long. Yes, we'll come help you because you're Americans, you're our friends. But then their neighboring militia, even if it's their worst enemy on a normal day, the militia that they hate the most, they might go to fisticuffs for a little bit, but they're not, when it comes push to shove, they're going to stop and say, okay, stop, because we got to live with each other. The Americans will go home, but we're still going to be here. So trying to try to imagine in that scenario, in that case, knowing that if I'm asking a militia, I'm relying on a militia to come help me because I'm being attacked by another militia or anybody, unless it's a common enemy outside of that country, right? The Al-Qaeda's and the ISIS and all those folks If it's from outside, if they're foreign fighters, that's a whole nother animal. But for our folks that don't understand that, first of all, it's beyond me why they wouldn't understand that, because that's just militia 101. And Libyans, when I used to talk to them all the time, militia to militia, they actually say those things when you're asking for assistance. And I said exactly, hey, what if this militia was attacking us? Would you come help us? And they're like, well, maybe if one of our people are involved, right? We might go to war with them, but that's asking a lot of them.
Yeah.
And just that misunderstanding of how the dynamics work there, and to think that you can rely on them to do those kind of things. It's not an American, right? You can't outdo the American fighting spirit, regardless, whoever that is. I mean, that is a unique thing only to Americans. But we often think that we train these people, so they have adopted our mentality about helping others.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and it's not the
damn
case.
good point.
Yeah, that's not the case. Especially if it's us, because we're the foreigners to either one of those folks. Even though they're our friends, we're always the foreigners. We're always the guests. So if you think about it in those terms, they're not going to risk the rest of their livelihoods and their children's livelihoods and their generations past, because they go to war. When they go to war, they go to war for generations. Even if that's the case, and we saw it in Afghanistan, we've seen it in Libya, we see it in everywhere we've been over the last 20 years plus. It never works out. If you're a studier of war and militias and all those kind of things, you see those are common threads. And those are common stories after the fact. Well, we were relying on the militia to come save us because they said they would. And we've been training with them, we've been drinking with them, we've been eating with them every day for the last 10 years, right? And they're our friends. We smile together, we laugh together, we mourn together, we fight together. And then when it comes push to shove, though, if it's against one of their neighboring people, I can't think of a entity right now that would do that for us. And that's kind of what happened.
Okay.
Some of which has happened in Libya altogether, and all of my experiences in Libya, but in Benghazi as well. So our office there was relying on the locals to come do something. And they didn't. Yeah, they didn't. They wouldn't. So they kind of portrayed that in the movie a little bit, where the local guard force has a cell phone, and he's talking to one of the commander of the attacking force. And I can't remember what character it was they had in the movie that was saying, "Who are you talking to?" And he's talking to the commander of the attacking force. It's like, how do you have his phone number? Well, it's because they live together. So they live in the same, they're locals. And it's just you can try to portray that all you want, and SF community, right? That's what you do in FID, right? You train locals to do to win their own battles. So the tendency in that environment too, and we do the same thing. Our guys that are working with locals, you fall in love with your own work, your own locals. I train them; they're good. They'll do anything I want them to do. They listen, and all day long. Because you're feeding them, you're paying them, you're clothing them, you're giving them training. And of course they're your friends, because they're your friends for now. But then when push comes to shove and you ask them specific questions about if this militia or whatever you want to call them are attacking us, because we just got some threats that are coming out of this area of the city, would you guys come help? And most often it'll be they don't want to say no because they want to make you happy, and that's but they'll kind of walk around the conversation and say yes, like just to make you happy. Yeah. But guess what? Over and over and over again, not just there, but in other places too, would call them for help, and somehow that phone never gets answered.
Hey everybody, I'm Shawn Ryan. Click here to subscribe to the Shawn Ryan Show YouTube channel for the hottest and most compelling interviews that you will not see anywhere else. I've also made a playlist of all the previous SRS episodes so they're easy to find. You can find that right here.